Hi, this is Dr. Danny Klitich with howtogrowroses.org. Thanks for tuning into this video. I hope you enjoy it.
Deadheading is when the flower is done, we need to remove the flower. Now we do this for many different reasons. For the one, they're not the most beautiful to look at. Dead flowers are, they kind of they drag down the plant aesthetically, and it's not something that the eye likes to look at. We also take them out because the flower, when the rose is blooming, the reason that it's blooming is it's trying to make seeds. So it's a lot of energy that's going into this bloom. Okay, so when we deadhead or remove the blooms that are done, that plant will try to push more blooms. So because it wants to produce seeds, and if we continuously remove the flowers, it will continuously produce more flowers. That's true for most modern varieties of roses. So like I said, this is Coco Loco. I'm gonna cut here and zoom in here so we can kind of look at it and kind of talk about the nitty-gritty here of where and when we deadhead on Coco Loco, which is a Floribunda, which is a little different of how we deadhead from a hybrid tea grandiflora, which is what we'll talk about next. So let's cut in close here. So here we are zoomed in on our Coco Loco, and you can see here we have a lot of dead blooms on here. You can see Coco Loco, a really unique kind of almost tan with a little lavender mixed in. A really popular rose right now with the garden designers and the floral designers. So here's Coco Loco. So you can see the blooms are done. The hips are starting to form to some extent, which is kind of the swelling of this base part of the bloom here. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to just on the Floribundas, you can come through and snip them off like this with your hand. That's what I do a lot of time in my garden when I'm just walking by. It's not the best option because you end up with these tattered ends, so you want to get a good pair of clippers, and we'll talk about in the main course kind of what defines a good pair of clippers. These are Felco number 8s, but and just kind of come back 3 to 4 inches, prune it off, and that's it. And just go through and take off the ones that are done. There's really not a whole lot of science here. It's going to bloom back. We're just trying to cut them down a little bit and remove the dead blooms. Now, one thing you'll notice, and I find this really truly amazing about how we perceive our garden, is that in many cases I would leave something like this. I don't know, can you see it? Yeah. So it's pretty much done, but it still has some color. But it's really interesting when you pull off these marginally done flowers that just don't look, that aren't 100%, you actually end up with a better looking plant that has 3 or 4 of these perfect blooms on it versus a couple dozen of these pretty much done blooms. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're going through deadheading. I tend to go through more on the aggressive side and remove those blooms that are going to be done tomorrow or the next day. So we end up with a nice fresh looking plant. If you're going through your garden every day and deadheading, maybe that's not necessary, but that's something that I think is very important here when we are deadheading. So another thing you can do when you're coming through here is remove any branches or cut back any branches that have just completely taken off and are throwing the balance of the plant off. Okay, so that's Floribundas. So let's go from here and let's go talk about hybrid tea grandifloras. Oh, and I should mention ground covers and many shrubs are also deadheaded this same way. So let's go look here at a hybrid tea grandiflora option. So here's all dressed up. Grandiflora, hybrid tea. We prune them both, or we deadhead them both about the same this time of year. So you can see here, this one has lots of different blooms on kind of these strong canes. So when we're proceeding through the bloom, these will all bloom at different rates. So we'll come through here and we'll prune these back down to kind of the main cane that has produced all these flowers. In this case, this probably will successively produce flowers for a week or 2 off this one cane, right? So we come through, clean that up as we have time and as we see fit. Now, when this entire cane is done blooming, if we don't take the height back down, it will produce new vigorous growth and it will shoot another cane up 3 feet. And unless you have a 2nd story balcony that you want hybrid tea roses blooming at, it's the best practice is to cut that whole cane back down to help push new low blooming growth. So you can see this was done here probably 3 or 4, well, probably 6 weeks ago for this one. and you can see it's pushing new low blooming growth. So this branch is just about done. So we come down here at about, I think, 18 inches or so and cut that whole thing off, and it's done. Now, some more equipment I guess that's important at this point is you want to get a good pair of gloves, good pair of leather gloves to help save your hands, right? So we'll talk more about different types of gloves and the attributes that they can have in the main course. But so just simply here, I'm going to clean up the top of this rose because it's just about done. So I'm going to do that here real quick and just take the rose back down to a good height to start with. Oh, there's a new flower coming. Don't want to cut that one off. So, oh, should have brought the loppers out here. That's a big one. Okay. So just cleaning it up. Not really looking any particular spot right now. Just cleaning it up, bringing it back down to a consistent height over the whole plant. Okay. So you can see here, this is about done. And we've done the other ones over there, and you can see that just kind of evening up the planter so they're all the same height. Okay, so you could stop here, but I want to zoom in a little bit here and talk about where precisely on the branch to trim and what that's going to do for the structure of the plant. So let's zoom in a little bit and take a look here at what we're going to call the bud eye, or where the next growth will come from on that plant. Okay, so let's do that. All right, so we're zoomed in now. And what you can see here is this is one that was cut a couple days ago. And this is where a leaf would have attached. See, just like this leaf is attached on this side here, this is where a leaf would have been attached. And what this is called a bud eye. So this is where the next branch will develop. Now, you can see here this one further back in the frame, that this one's been pruned probably a couple days ahead, and that this new branch is developing out of, so you can still see the old, see there's the old bottom of the leaf, and that's developing here. Now what this allows us to do is it allows us to direct where the majority of that new growth is going to go, right? So this branch is going to grow out away from the bush. And now when we pick where we want to prune, if we want to come through with this type of precision, we're going to try and pick these bud eyes, or this bud here, that is growing away from the center of the plant, especially on hybrid teas. Floribundas, this isn't something we really do because they kind of take care of themselves. But hybrid teas, if you prune them and for some reason you luckily get all the ones that go in the middle, you'll end up with this knotted up mess in the middle of the plant. You really want more of an open-centered plant, and that'll help grow stronger canes and get more sunlight, and you'll have a stronger plant overall. So we want to try and prune where we prune about, you can see here, about a ½ inch above, a ½ inch to a ¼ inch above that bud that we want that pushes away from the center of the plant. So this is the center of the plant over here. This is facing out away from it, and that allows us to direct the direction of the growth. Now sometimes we don't want to push growth away from the center of the plant. For example, this bush, you can't see it in this frame, but this bush is right next to a pathway, and we don't want this bud to shoot off into the pathway and then just be grabbing onto us every time we try and walk by. So in that case, we might prune it more to shoot it back into the planter or in a different direction. And you can go around, the buds just go down and they kind of rotate around the branch. So you can kind of pick which direction you want it to shoot. So that's, if you want to get real precise on your deadheading, especially in hybrid teas, that's something you can do. Okay, so that's it for deadheading that I wanted to cover. We didn't talk about a lot of the other types for deadheading. Minis, you prune them the same as Floribundas, where you just kind of snip off the old ones. Hedge trimmers can do great there. Same thing for ground covers. We mentioned that in the last, when we were looking at Floribundas. Climbers, you would deadhead similar to what you do here, where you would just prune them back a little ways. I did want to mention, actually, let's zoom out. We'll shoot one more and talk about the 3-leaf versus 5-leaf and what that means, because you'll see that around on forums and things like that if you've been looking into how to prune roses. So let's talk about that, and then we'll sum it up. Okay, so here's a good example of 3-leaf versus 5 leaves. Now, what we're talking about here is, let me pull this one off of here. So you can see here, this one has 3 leaflets on this leaf. So this is all a leaf, so it's a little bit of a misnomer, but 3 leaves, as opposed to further down the branch. Pull one off from down here. This one has 5 leaves on it. So the conventional recommendation, especially on a hybrid tea, let me put those down, is to count down until you at least have leaflets of 5. So here's a leaflet of 5. Let me grab my clippers here. And we would deadhead to at least here. Now, the key term there is at least. Now, the theory that we're doing this is to make sure that we have a strong enough branch to support support the next bud to grow and make it not fall over. Now, in many cases, I find myself pruning well below this, and I think that a better rule of thumb really is to count down 5 leaves. So we count from the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and at least go that many leaves. And in many cases, I go probably more like 10 and go way down here. I know you can't see it's out of frame, but cut a lot more off than that. And that's just going to allow for us to have a stronger structured plant and better branching. So, yeah, so that's the 5-leaf rule when we're pruning. So a little bit more of a in-depth look there.
Hey, thanks for sticking around till the end of that video. Really enjoyed sharing that content with you, and I'm always working to try and put some new and exciting content together. In the meantime, if you could jump over my webpage, howtogrowroses.org, and sign up for our email list, we'll be sure to keep you in the loop as new content comes around and we continue to launch new products on our website. Thanks for watching.